Good day, everyone. For this episode, we will go on to talk about the derivative house meanings that results in the fourth house. So there are 12 other derivative combinations that result in the fourth house in terms of meaning, and we will go around the wheel to actually explore those. And just like the rest of this 13-part series, this episode will be available for early access if you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, and you can find the link in the description box below. So without any further delay, let's jump in and look at the other derivative meanings of the fourth house. So let me just get my arrow. Okay. So we are talking about the fourth house as the resultant one. So let's start off with the fourth house itself, which is our area of concern. So the fourth house is actually the first from the fourth, because we are counting the house itself. So it's the fourth. So it's the first, sorry, from the fourth house cusp. And if we actually combine the meanings of the first house and then our area of concern, which is the fourth house, basically this can be talking about the personal conclusion, outcome, or result of an undertaking of sorts. And it may also be one's viewpoint that's stemming from one's cultural ties or family tradition. Because cultural ties and family tradition is very much the fourth house domain. And on top of that, this can also be the behavior and also mannerisms from family ties, culture, and also tradition. And another variation of the first from the fourth, this can also be talking about one's effect on others at one's end of life or end of undertakings, because the fourth house can also mean the end of life of something. The eighth house can also represent that, but we'll get on to that when we cover the eighth house derivative house meanings. So the next, the first from the fourth, this can also be the condition, the health of one's digestion, digestive organs, and this may also show up as if there's some kind of troubles dealing with the whole digestive tract, or there's something that shows up in terms of issues with digestive juices as well. Because anything that's digestion and digestive in nature is very much the fourth house domain. This may also be the appearance or look of one's dwelling or place in which one calls home. This may also be talking about early home environment, home life, or paternal figure growing up and their influences on yourself. And this may also talk about private life or matters. The fourth house can also be talking about spiritual security as well. On top of that, you also can be talking about inner base of operations. And moving on, this may also be talking about the first impressions or habits or disposition of one's mother-in-law or maternal great-grandmother. Now, why do I say mother-in-law? Because there's actually 10 houses away from the seventh, and that's how we end up with the fourth house. And since the area of concern is the fourth house, we get mother-in-law fitting into the archetypal meaning of things. And what about maternal grandmother? Because maternal grandmother is our mother's mother's mother. So our mother is the 10th house. And mother's mother, we got to count 10 houses from the 10th. We end up with the 7th. And then we got to count another 10 houses because this time we are covering mother's mother's mother. So from the 7, we count 10 houses, we end up with the 4th. So it's maternal grandmother that can be represented by the 4th house cusp and also mother-in-law in this case as well. And last but not least, this can also be talking about inherited influences itself from the paternal figure growing up. I've talked about that in some kind of capacity just a few minutes before. And now let's move on to the next combination. So for this, our area of concern begins with the third house. So we need to end up at the fourth. So this can be the second divisional house from the third. That's how we end up with the fourth house in the end. So the second from the third, if I were to combine these two meanings, I actually can get the money and finances or gifts and resources and personal wealth of one's siblings, aunts and uncles, cousins, and also relatives as well. This may also be talking about income or monetary gains from contracts, blogs, writings, and also one's communication style as well. This may also be talking about one's value of or sense of security that's derived from or money that's needed for short traveled journeys, which is very much a third house kind of meaning. And then two divisional houses away that brings in the money that's needed or the value that's placed upon, so on and so forth. And two divisional houses away can also be talking about fulfilling survival needs as well. And the third house can be what the mind is oriented towards. So if I were to combine it to one sentence, this can be fulfilling survival needs is what the mind is oriented towards. And last but not least, this can be somewhere along the lines of building self-esteem and worth. And this is stemming from writing, speaking, teaching, and learning, or being a student of sorts, because it's one of the third house domain. And now let's move on quickly to the next possible combination. So this time, the area of concern, we start from the second house. And we need to end up at the fourth house cusp. So this combination is the third divisional house from the second. So the third from the second in short. And this can be talking about the environment, often bringing up one's survival needs. This may also be talking about forming local connections. It's what one values or makes income from. This may be also talking about reaching out to form neighborhood watch committees to ensure one's security and safety. This may also be talking about siblings, aunts and uncles, cousins and relatives. These people may form one's safety net or security blanket of sorts, because the second house can be something that's linked to security blanket or safety net. So now let's move on to the next combination. So the area of concern now starts from the first, and it is 4 houses away from the first, so that we hit the fourth house cusp. So the fourth from the first. This can actually mean that one's behavior is directed towards one's experience of relationships with his or her actual family members, or simply with people whom one deems as family. This may also be talking about one's attitude towards early home environment, one's home life, paternal figure growing up, private life or matters, spiritual security, like I mentioned earlier, and the inner base of operation, which can make it easier or harder. It depends. So another variation of this meaning will be developing self-awareness, helps one with identifying familial patterns and cultural roots as well. This may also describe someone who is into real estate or property, having private time in the comfort of one's own home or space. This may also be talking about placing down roots to form a family of his or her own. And last but not least, this can also be someone who's actively involved in cultural or familial traditions as well. So this is what I can think of if I'm talking about the fourth from the first. So now let's move on to the next combination. And we are starting from our area of concern being the 12th house. So this is 5 divisional houses from the 4th house. So the combination here will be the 5th from the 12th, okay? So the 5th from the 12th, this can be talking about creative self-expression or process that's being influenced by experiences of grief and sorrow. This may also be via channeling perhaps entities from other worlds or realms as well. The second part of what I mentioned is stuff that's surrounding the 12th house and its themes. And the 5th from the 12th, this can also be performances which have an otherworldly or dreamlike quality. Another meaning I can think of will be the children's speculations or pleasures, anything that's 5 divisional houses away. And this is coming from one's aunts and uncles, coming from the maternal side, because the 12th house is actually 3 divisional houses from the 10th. And the 10th house represents our maternal figure growing up or our mother. And the siblings of our mothers, we have to count 3 houses from the 10th. So we end up with the 12th. And we got to have another 5 divisional houses to hit the 4th. This is what we want for this episode. So this is the children's speculations and pleasures of one's aunts and uncles from the maternal side of the family. Okay. And another variation of this meaning in the derivative sense will be the artistic endeavors or enterprise that's inspired by spirituality, mysticism, one's meditation and prayers. And the 12th house can also be astral experiences as well. So someone can actually make one's own company that involves such 12th house themes. Spirituality, mysticism, meditation and prayers, and also anything to do with like astral experiences. This can be channeling other entities from that realm, or someone who actually is into mediumship as well. I find mediumship is very much a 12th house vibe. That's what I get. And anything that's 5 divisional houses away is what you do during one's downtime or free time. So this can be inferred as downtime that's being enjoyed by attending spiritual retreats or going to some kind of massage parlors or spa. Because spiritual retreats, massage parlors, and spa are very much 12th house related places. And anything that's 5 divisional houses away can be one's lover. Anything that's 12th house can represent ghost, a ghost. So if I were to put the meanings together, this can be a lover who often practices ghosting, who disappears without a reason. Poof, off he or she goes. There's very much a 12th house kind of energy. So the act of ghosting is a 12th house thing, by the way. And 5 divisional houses represent a lover archetype who does just that. And now let's move on to the next combination. So this time the area of concern starts from the 11th house. So this is 6 divisional houses to the 4th. So it's the 6th from the 11th. This is what we are talking about in terms of combination in meanings on a derivative house basis. And this may be talking about that which serves one's social causes, attunement to societal trends, illnesses and diseases. And this may come from one's friends, acquaintances, associates, friends, friends with benefits, and also happy hour buddy, people who are belonging to the 11th house domain. And another possible combination can be one's proficiency or specialization that's dealing with large groups of people or a large audience as well. And another meaning here can be sharing one's concerns for health and diet or exercise with associates, friends with benefits. 11th house can also be stepchildren as well, by the way. So that's another meaning of the 11th house. And another variation of this combination, the 6th from the 11th, can be the health and servants of one's friends with benefits, acquaintance, associate, happy hour buddies, or of one's stepchildren as well. And last but not least, this can also be talking about one's daily interaction or rituals with animals. This may also be talking about social causes that one gets involved with. So I would just want to repeat. So this can be talking about one's daily interactions or rituals. That's the 6 divisional houses away in terms of meaning. And this may involve some kind of animal influence, which are tied to social causes in which one gets involved with. Okay. So this is what I can give you in terms of the 6th from the 11th in terms of influence. And now let's move on to the next combination. Okay, so now the area of concern, we start off with the 10th house. So this is exactly 7 houses away in order for us to reach the 4th house cusp. So this is the 7th from the 10th. This is the combination we're covering now. And so what I can think of will be the complement, needing to fit in with one's ambitions, social status, reputation, or vocational achievements, the 7th from the 10th. And this may also be talking about having a significant relationship, is being placed second to having recognition, social status, or a public life. This may also be having that inferred meaning in using the derivative method. And this may also be talking about the spousal figure or the complement of one's paternal great-grandfather. Okay, so why great-grandfather? Because we are talking about the father's father's father. So if you understand how I derive the maternal grandfather, maternal grandmother, you will understand how I get the 10th house being the paternal grandfather, because it's the 4th house from the 4th. So we get the 7th. So we got to count 4 more houses from the 7th. That's how we derive what actually describes our paternal great-grandfather. And this is the 10th house cusp. The 10th house cusp can also be talking about one's father-in-law as well, because the father-in-law is the father figure of our partner. So this is 4 houses away from the 7th representing our marriage partner or committed partner or business partner. It may not be personal. So counting 4 houses away from the 7, this is where we get our father-in-law figure. And so we got to count another 7 houses in order to reach the 4th. So this adds on to the spousal figure or the complement of that person, which in this case is our father-in-law figure. And another meaning of this can be the business relationship helps one to achieve the pinnacle that one strives for in society. Okay, this is a more abstract but still important kind of meaning. And another meaning I can think of will be the possible open conflict, 7 divisional houses away, that occurs between staying at home and participating in the family unit. This is where I bring in the 4th house resultant that we need to reach versus being away from the family in order to establish a career. This is the 10th. So you can see how in one sentence I've combined the 7th from the 10th, which equals the 4th house, all in one sentence, okay? But this is on a more psychological manner. And another meaning, if I were to combine the 4th and the 7th from and the 10th, this can be talking about the child in us, which is the 4th, could conflict, which is 7 divisional houses away, with the adult-like behavior expected in our professional life, which is the 10th. So you can see how I brought this in so you can have a more expanded understanding of what we are doing here. And last but not least, this can also be talking about the early conditioning influences that may cause friction. 7 divisional houses away means friction in how we function later in society later on. So the early conditioning part is the 4th, and functioning later in society will be the 10th. Okay, so I hope this is clear. And now let's move on to the next one. So the area of concern, we start off from the 9th house. And if we count from the 9th house, it is 8 divisional houses away from the 9th so that we hit the 4th house. So it's the 8th from the 9th. Okay, in terms of combination, derivative houses wise. And this can be talking about deep emotional exchanges with foreigners that helps to expand our horizons and perceptions and belief systems and personal philosophies. This may also be talking about the death and legacy of one's sibling or siblings-in-law. And the 9th house also can represent grandchildren as well. On a more abstract basis or psychological basis, this also can mean that one can be very taken in by the mysteries surrounding foreign lands or international destinations, or there's some kind of personal intrigue due to overseas cultural influences presented to oneself. Another meaning here can be one's investigation into the death and rebirth process and or the occult shape one's belief system or gives one purpose in life. Purpose in life is very much that 9th house kind of domain. And last but not least, this may also describe the tax and debt issues, which causes one to flee to another international destination. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now let's move on quickly to the next combination. And so now the area of concern, we start off from the 8th house. So counting from the 8th to the 4th is actually 9 divisional houses away. So it's the 9th from the 8th, meaning here that we are trying to delineate and combine. And this may be talking about the purpose behind one's urge to merge or to undergo personal transformation, or in the pursuit of the occult, or to investigate and research. The second half of the sentence really talks about 8th house related stuff. This may also describe someone who is an archaeologist, by the way. The 9th from the 8th. Someone who may be working as an astrologer, such as myself, or a producer of horror or gore films. Okay. And this may also be describing someone who brings their knowledge from the higher courts, because that's what the 9 divisional houses away can mean, you know, in an advisory or counseling capacity to matters that concern shared resources, inheritances, taxes, or bank loans. The second half of that sentence really talks about 8th house related stuff. And this can also be the journey towards attaining a tantric experience or orgasm as well. 8th house related stuff, the second part of the sentence. And last but not least, this may also be talking about the pursuit of the meaning of life leads one to embrace peak experiences, 8th house related stuff, or crisis situations as they come. So this is what the 9th from the 8th combination can be talking about. And let us briefly go through the next combination here. So we are starting from our area of concern being the 7th house. So it's 10 divisional houses away to hit the 4th. So it's the 10th from the 7th. This is what we are talking about. And this may give an overall description of one's mother-in-law, particularly talking about the social status, the career, the vocation, and the profession of one's mother-in-law. Because if you recall how we derive the houses for father-in-law, so just in that one sentence that I just said, the mother-in-law basically is represented by the 4th house. And we got to count 10 divisional houses away from the 7th. So one's mother-in-law basically covers the 7th house, the 10 divisional houses away, and the 4th house meaning, all in one short sentence. The overall description of one's mother-in-law. This can be talking about what she does in the world, so social status, reputation, the need for achievement, all those things. Anything that's 10 divisional houses away. And this may also be talking about someone who has a parental, in this case, maternal-like influence over their partner. This can be a personal partner or a professional partner, like a business partner as well. And this may also be talking about someone who's working in the capacity of being a professional, marriage counselor, or therapist. Or it may talk about someone whose profession involves working with another in a one-to-one manner as well. This may also be talking about the social status, social standing, career and reputation of one's partner. And this may also describe someone who is looking out for a trophy spouse. Why a trophy spouse? Because it's 10 divisional houses away from the 7th. And this can be inferring that social or societal recognition comes via having that spouse by your side, the seventh, that enhances one's social standing, the 10th divisional houses away. This may also be talking about finding one's true profession, vocation, or career from mutual efforts and commitments whilst working with a partner, be it personal or business. Another meaning here can be the profession and reputation of one's maternal grandmother, because maternal grandmother is 10 houses away from the 10th, because she's the mother's mother. So we end up with the starting point or area of concern being the 7th house cusp. So we gotta count 10 houses away to add the meaning. So we end up with the 4th house as the resultant one. Last but not least, this can be the profession and reputation of one's nieces and nephews, by the way. And why nieces and nephews? Because if we actually count from the 5th house cusp, which represents our children in general, the 7th house where we need to start from is 3 divisional houses away, which can represent sibling kind of relationship to our children. And that's why we get the meaning of nieces and nephews, which are represented by our 7th house cusp, which is our area of concern. So I just want to repeat, is the profession, vocation, and career, the social standing and status of one's nieces and nephews. So I hope this is clear. And now let's move on to the next one. So the area of concern now stems from the 6th house. And this is 11 divisional houses away to the 4th. So it's the 11th from the 6th. This is what we are looking at. And this may be talking about bringing a group or hive, H-I-V-E, like mentality into one's daily work environment. This may also be talking about becoming involved in organizations relating to one's job. This can also be talking about one's aspirations, future hopes, and dreams of being a member of a trade union or guild. Because trade union and guild can be coming from the 6th house domain. This can also be talking about the friendship circle or network of one's tenant. Tenant is 6th house. Employee is also 6th house. A servant or a hired help kind of figure to you. Another meaning here can be the groups and institutional involvement, which involve animals, 6th house. This can be talking about organizations such as PETA, or being like a being a veterinarian. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And the next meaning here can be talking about being surrounded by or relying on or working with associates, acquaintances, friends, which makes daily task easier to deal with. Okay. And last but not least, this can be talking about bringing social awareness and causes to one's employees, hired help, servants. And last but not least, apprentice can also be falling into the 6th house domain as well, just like tenants. Okay. So last but not least, let's go on to talk about the very last combination in this episode. So we are starting from the 5th house cusp as our area of concern. So this is 12 divisional houses away to reach the 4th house. So it's the 12th from the 5th. And this can be talking about working in a museum-like environment, coming from one's love of art and design. This may also be talking about the sorrows and losses of, or losses through, one's children in general. But the fifth house, like we said in previous episode, this can be meant for particularly our firstborn kid or child. The fifth house can also be talking about our love affairs. So it can be also talking about the sorrows and losses of or losses through our love affairs, or our creative endeavors, or through our self-made enterprises. Self-made enterprises can also be the fifth house in terms of meaning. And anything that's 12 divisional houses away can also be talking about secret enemies. And this is of one's children, but particularly our firstborn, which is the fifth house. Meaning, in essence, this can also be talking about potentially escaping reality by sleeping around sexually. Okay? And another meaning here can be the losses from gambling and games, or sports, or hobbies. This may also be talking about practicing activities that promote empathy and compassion during one's downtime or free time. So this can be someone who is doing perhaps volunteer work in their downtime or free time as well. And last but not least, this can be referring to someone who finds meditation, prayer, and spiritual music a fun activity when they need to let loose and chill. Let loose and chill or free time is all fifth house related stuff. So with this, I will conclude this episode, which talks about the 12 derivative combinations of the fourth house clasp, or fourth house in general. So do consider subscribing to this YouTube channel as a member, and you will find the link in the description box below. So till then, take care. And for the next episode, we will go on to look at the 12 different derivative combinations of the fifth house. So take care.